Shuddho buddho vimuktaha Shrutishikharagiram mukhyatatparya bhumi Yasmad jadam samastam Jagadidam amrtat vyapya sarvam Sthido yaha Yasyam sham shavatarai Suranaravanajairekshidam Sarvametad Tam bhumanam mukundam Hridigatam amalam Krishnameva prapadye Tam bhumanam mukundam Hridigatam amalam Krishnameva prapadye Madhya hridaya kashe Sadanandamayo Guruhu Udetu satatam samyag Swatmananda prabodhakaha Harihi, Harihi, Harihi Om Tas Jai Guru, Jai Guru. As usual, we shall have 3 times the joint recitation of the auspicious monosyllable Omkara. I don't think you would have forgotten, or maybe you have forgotten. I will remind you. The chanting of Omkara has a special influence on the biological heart of the body. It increases its health and longevity. There are some special glands, like the pineal gland, which are activated by this recitation. They look after the brain, the mind, and such other things in the body. All of them are not physical or energial in character, neither material nor energial, but something different from these. That is what we indicate by the term spirit and spiritual. Spiritual means supra-material. Interlock your fingers and put them on your lap. Sit comfortably erect and close your eyes. Open the mouth and the heart and join me. Our recitation should permeate the whole of the earth, showering its benedictions on all living creatures. There is a shloka which I am going to discuss today, where Arjuna makes the first confession before Krishna, saying that I am deluded. I am not able to think in terms of propriety and ethics of my action. I don't know where lies my supreme good of life. A special word used is shreyas. So please instruct me on the path. I am your disciple, a shishya, and I anoint you as my teacher, Guru. Instruct me properly. This is something that you should remember whenever you think of Bhagavad Gita. I will recite it for you. Karpanya dosho vahata svabhavaha. Karpanya dosho vahata svabhavaha. Prichami tvam dharma sammudha cheta yachreyasya nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. I also want you to chant. I should have done it first. Divi bhumau tatha kashe bahirantascha me vibhu yo vibhatyavabhasatma tasmai sarvatmane namaha divi bhumau tatha kashe bahirantascha me vibhu yo vibhatyavabhasatma tasmai sarvatmane namaha Do you know? Every one of you will agree that you have a mind, but you don't know anything about your mind. We have a mind, and people fight for whatever the mind thinks. But they don't know anything about the mind. What is this mind? Where is it located? How does it work? Are we to bring about any cultural reformation in the mind or refinement? None of these thoughts is taken up by anybody. How can they improve? Maximum they can earn some money, that's all. Nothing more. See, there is a beautiful proverb which says, a man is judged not by what he has, but by what he is. So that is part is very deplorable. Maybe people have something. The first point that I wanted to mention today was, what about yesterday's exposure? Did you all reflect about whatever you heard? No answer. Huh? See, in that reflection is your gain. I am here, I am sitting, I am speaking. That part is done by you. You only hear. But whether you have heard, whether you have understood, and what are you going to do about it? In that process, you are left alone. I won't be there. The speaker will not be there. The speech will not be there. It is for you to do independently your own reflection, rumination, introspection over what you have heard. Unless this rumination or reflection is done, the knowledge that you have got, exposure that you have had, will not become yours. It will just remain like a novel which you have read, that's all. So that manana is very important. So I am asking you, did you reflect upon sufficiently well about what I spoke and you heard? This answer is very important. Are you clear in your mind that Bhagavad Gita is not a time-bound or an occasion-bound dialogue? It is true that it transpired 5061 years ago in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Not very far away from here. It was a one-time dialogue that transpired. But how is it that it has become an all-time gospel for us? A cultural document, a value exposure, an administrative treasure trove. There are so many different kinds of human activity, but the most complex and challenging is public administration. Do you know that? Public administration. Under public administration, there will be at least rare occasions when the administrator will have to take ruthless decisions. If the people behave ruthlessly, what will the administrator do? Tell me. Are there not occasions when lathi charge is made on civilians? Water shells are fired, and ultimately real fire also is opened. It is very ruthless, because ruthless behavior on the part of the society compels this kind of a treatment. Now, war can only be fought by a government. It cannot be fought by the people. It can be fought by an appointed army, an employed army. So under public administration, you can say war is the most complex and challenging undertaking. What is happening in Gaza? Tunnels are made underneath famous hospitals, and terrorists have taken their shelter, equipped themselves with arms and ammunition. Did it all happen in one day? Not at all. Countries have freedom to look after themselves. But when the freedom is employed beyond a certain measure, whereby that country is questioning the others, trying to extend the boundaries, resorting to absolutely unpardonable means and ways, tell me what kind of a treatment will it evoke from people? What should public administration do? That is why we have named this Bhagavad Gita. In the book you will find it is an administrative treasure trove. It gives the right insight to administrators. A war cannot be an accident. Ultimately, the war is fought between two individual minds. A huge army may fight it, but it is evoked by the pulsations, the vibrations of individual human minds. What about Hitler? A single man who was able to marshal quite a number of people. I always wonder, a Hitler may have become ruthless, but can thousands and thousands of citizens and people be so? Just see. This society is notorious, human society. Our society had no qualms in demanding that the wives of the departed husbands immediately immolate themselves in the same pyre. How did the society bring about such a tradition? What kind of a norm or reason is there? Don't think that the humans are very good, noble and great. They are, but not collectively. A group of 100 or 200 or 500 students, they join together, they can do any kind of a crime. Sportfully they will do it. What will you do when such a situation comes? Somewhere in the north, some free distribution of things was taking place. The crowd was so much that the police came and had to open fire. Can you imagine? The most laudable, gentle, kind and noble act of charity. When that charity was being performed, the crowd behaved so unruly, uncontrollably, that police had to open fire. So public administration is always noted for that. Human societies' behavior is like this. They demand such a ruthless administration. Warring tendencies are in humans. As long as warring tendencies are there, and arms and ammunition factories also are there, tell me whether war can be avoided. I was asked to present in an international conference convened by the United Nations Secretary General. I asked them what was the purpose. It is to sign a no-war declaration. I said I will not come. Why? I have been exposing this Bhagavad Gita, which is a gospel that took place in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Krishna specifically says, Tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Therefore, O Arjuna, fight with resolve and determination. I have been exposing the scripture for decades. Such a man, how can I expect a no-war situation in the world, in the human society, and call them to sign such a paper? I said, I will not come. What do you say? But the war was fought between fighters, not between fighters and civilians. Now this is taking place. So if the terrorists have taken shelter under the hospitals, under kindergarten classes, what will the enemies do? What will the fighters do? So who is forcing these situations? This is also a point to be thought of. Bhagavad Gita discusses all this and a lot more. All this and a lot more. As I said, the individual human personality is the first subject of discussion. The second is the complex world. The third is the art and the science of interacting with the world by the individual and by the group. You will find this and this alone, this alone. One day I will show you, if it is convenient, 1 or 2 PowerPoints explaining the whole philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. The content and message of Bhagavad Gita solely relate to the mind and the intelligence of the human. How many times shall I repeat it? The content and the message of Bhagavad Gita solely relate to the human mind, mind and intelligence. When somebody speaks, tell me who will hear? A man with no mind can hear a speech? Who understands? The nose or the ear? Intelligence understands. And it is the mind and the intelligence that absorb the information, process the information, reflect upon the knowledge gained and implement it. And in every implementation you will find mind is the source. Mind is the source. It is mind that employs the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue and the skin. And the interactions are taking place in the sensory level. But these interactions are enabled only by the mind. Mind is the source of all interactions. Every interaction subsists on the mind, sourced by the mind, and terminates in the mind. Am I clear? Are you clear? Let us proceed further. After listening to Krishna, as I told you, 64 letters, about 20 or 21 words, Arjuna completely changed his point of view. He said, I will not raise anymore the question of sympathy or fondness. No, I will not. He will not indulge in any kind of a sympathetic consideration or anything allied to it. But he has some valid questions. Krishna, you have stationed my chariot right in front of Bhishma and Drona. I had not expected this. Bhishma is the commander-in-chief of Duryodhana. Drona also is a commander. One is my grandfather, another is my great teacher. I have to use all the knowledge that I have gained from the teacher against the teacher, against my grandfather. And both of them have no enmity towards me. I also have no enmity towards them. I can fight enemies, but can I fight adorable people? Which human mind will allow emotionally this kind of a confrontation? I agree that I have to fight. But how can a human mind attempt any kind of an action like this? Is it ever possible? So I have a question. By what process? But by what kind of a motivation I can make my mind and the intelligence attempt this great task? So it is a valid question. It is not related to sympathy at all. I have my mind and its emotions. I have my intelligence and its questions and standards. So how can I think of fighting? Is it possible to persuade my mind and intelligence? The question is deep, Krishna. It is not a superficial question. It's a very deep question. Is there any greater insight by virtue of which, by absorbing which, by taking my stand on which, I can persuade my mind and intelligence to take up weapons against Bhishma and Drona? The more he thought about it, his confusion grew tremendously. And he finally submits in this matter. It is very, very important. Karpanya doshobhata svabhavaha pritchami tvam dharma sammudha chedaha yat shreyasya nishchitam bruhitan me shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prabannam. Bah! Bah! This is the greatness and glory of India. We have a number of seekers in this world, in our country particularly. As we are discussing here, I am sure somebody will be taking up sannyasa in India. And this sannyasa is aimed at knowing the supreme reality, getting to the self and realizing it, ripping open the mystery about God and experience godliness. This is the purpose of sannyasa. So our country is noted for the presence of a variety of seekers. But all of them are seeking, not in the war front, not in the administrative front. They are seeking in very peaceful environments. They would have taken a decision, gone to a teacher. The teacher would have welcomed them, and they enter into a conversation. Maybe a few days of contact and association also follow, and finally they decide. But here, Arjuna is not in such a situation. He is in the midst of a deadly war, which is going to liquidate 4.5 million minus 10 warriors in 18 days. In such a situation, What is this that Arjuna says? He clearly submits, recognizes, acknowledges, and confesses that I am no more an aggrieved man. I am a confused person. The grief element has gone. Actually not gone fully. It's not grief element, but the sympathy element has gone. The love element has gone. But what survives in him is valid questions and doubts. So the more he thought he could not find an answer, the confusion grew. So he said the best way is to submit his plight before Krishna and seek a solution. So he uses a very important expression, Karpanya doshobhata swabhava. Karpanya dosha, doshobhata swabhava. Overpowered by Karpanya dosha. What is Karpanya? In one sense, it is miserliness. What is miserliness? You know? You have ample resources. But when it comes to a question of giving and spending, you take. There is an unwillingness in you. That liberality is not there. So that constriction is called Karpanya. So we have the intelligence, we have the mind, we have the heart. They are very great organs in the body. Their resources are incalculable. Keeping all these resources, if one behaves in a very paltry manner, what is it called? So I am not able to think broadly, widely, loftily, expansively. I am not able to. So Karpanya dosha has overpowered me. In one word I can put it as narrow-mindedness. Narrow-mindedness. Arjuna was not facing a war for the first time in our country. So many wars have been fought. You know, at the time of independence, we had 600 kingdoms. So when the East India Company entered into the land of India, how many kingdoms should have been there? At least 1,000. And many of them were fighting with each other. The king wanted to become an emperor. And the only way he can be is by fighting and conquering neighboring and other kingdoms. So internecine quarrels and fights used to be a regular affair here. In all of them, men alone would die. So the Kshatriya community always had shortage of men. That is why they were allowed to marry more than one woman. The rule and the culture, the tradition with the Kshatriya community is any woman coming to seek the hand of a man, the man cannot refuse it. It was a need. Because men were dying in large number. Can you imagine the Kshatriya society after 4.5 million warriors were liquidated in 18 days? What should have been the extent of shortage of men in the Kshatriya community? I once calculated how many people Krishna has been directly or indirectly able to liquidate. It is about 15 crores of people. Don't be afraid, Baba, learn. Try to understand. Our country is very great. Everything in this country is great. Our poverty is great. Our riches, wealth also very great. Good people are great. Bad people also are huge in number. Everything is great in our country. Mark the words Arjuna uses. Karpanya doshobhata swabhava. My nature has been overpowered by Karpanya dosha. Prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheda. Therefore, I am not able to think properly. You tell me that I should fight and I should not be overpowered by sympathy and other considerations. I agree. But how to fight? I must have the strength, the stability, the resolve, the confidence, the clarity, the enlightenment, which I am missing. So suddenly Arjuna became an inquirer, not a fighter. Can you imagine? He left his bow and arrow and sat unable to stand. That was the plight. I don't think anywhere else in the history of India such kind of an episode has taken place. Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. I am asking you for clarity, being deluded, confused in my own way about what is the proper course of action for me. And then he says, Yat shreyasyan nishchitam bruhitan me. See, the tone changes. The idea and content change totally. Yat shreyasyad. What will bring about supreme good and felicity for me? Nishchidam bruhidan me. Tell me decisively as to where lies my supreme good and felicity. Felicity. Two are the objectives in human life. One is abhyudaya, called prosperity. Another is shreyas, spiritual felicity. Prosperity comes in the sensory range. You amass wealth, have so many material resources. This is called prosperity. The other is inner. It is the abundance the mind and the intelligence feel, actualize, experience, are filled with. All of them leading to a sense of inner abundance, ecstasy and fulfillment. That is called Shreyas. So standing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna became a seeker of truth and he seeks Shreyas. Now you tell me. Is Shreyas only restricted to the people who live in forests? Perhaps as ascetics? Or it is available to one and all, in spite of the fact, wherever he is, whatever he does. There are only two sections, communities in our society. One is the ascetic community, another is the householder community. The householder community will be at every point of time 99.9999 recurring person. Ascetics will be very few. All are born of the householders. The celibates, brahmacharis are born from them. They are the people who get married. And the anchorites, the vanaprastha people, they are also householders, matured. Then sannyasins, no doubt born from them. So household life and householders are very, very important. Unfortunately, the householders do not understand this. I always say our industrialists are the lord of our people, not the government. The government only levies tax from the industries. They don't earn money. The industries and farmers, say agriculturists, these are the two sections which produce wealth of the people. The industries should realize this. They are taking share money from the people. They are also getting goods price from the people. So their life itself is related to, very much indebted to the society at large. If only they realize it, I believe the industries will not go for profiteering. There must be a measure of surplus always. It may be something like 15 to 20%, maximum 25%. And they should sell goods at a lower price so that the marginal people will be able to buy and they will get more money. Percentage-wise, the profit may be less, but in terms of quantum, it will be more. I had made a PowerPoint presentation for this. but I had no occasion to talk and discuss it with industries. Industries are the lord of the people. They make the money. They make the money. Maybe they have some luxurious styles of life. Let a few people live. What of it? Why are you worried? Let them make money and give us. The government cannot do it. Air India was taken over by government a few years back. And ultimately, I am sometimes wondering, the government the government begged them to buy it. This is what happens. Government is not supposed to conduct business. They should not. They should be interested in developing the infrastructure elements in the country. So this is something very, very important. Householders, very important. They are the people for whom even sannyasins initially get born. It is because of the culture implanted in the children by the householders that they become sannyasins. So this is very important. I am deluded, my dear Krishna, about the course of propriety that I should follow. But I would like to be a seeker of truth. I already have become. So you should tell me, wherein lies my shreyas. Wherein lies my shreyas. This word I want you to remember. One is called Abhyudaya. Abhyudaya. If I had a board, I would have written it for you. Abhyudaya is material and physical, economic prosperity. Shreyas is inner spiritual felicity. I am a humble disciple of yours, he says, tells Krishna, and you are my teacher. I anoint you as a teacher. I am no more your brother-in-law. No. I am your disciple. I anoint you as my teacher. Instruct me as a teacher would his disciple. Shadhimam tvam prapannam. I have completely surrendered unto you. Now, you should understand. You see, you must have a sense of realism. It's a talk that transpired in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, where 4.5 million warriors, all of them were breathlessly, impatiently waiting to discharge arrows. Only because of the illustrious nature of Arjuna and Krishna, they kept quiet. After the dialogue was over, they started discharging arrows. Can you imagine the momentous nature of the whole dialogue? Now, if you ask me, what is Gita? Gita is a dialogue between teacher Krishna and disciple Arjuna. Never give any other status to Krishna. Don't say Krishna Bhagavan, you lose the game. Krishna was an enlightened person. Bhishma was, Drona was, Janaka was. He was an enlightened person. He also happened to be a Kshatriya. His Sudarshana Chakra was gifted to him. It was not earned by him. It was gifted to him. When he wanted to build Dwaraka, from so many sources help was given. That is why Dwaraka came up. It was his plan, his management. You should read the description of Dwaraka from Srimad Bhagavatam. How many crossroads were there? How many buildings were there? What was the boundary wall like? What was the illumination like? What about the jogging path? All these are described there. It's very interesting. I take pride in reading and explaining these things to people. So, Krishna was hearing all this. Now, what do you find in Arjuna? the transition is very significant. All the grief, so much of other things also, everything is suspended now. His intelligence has asserted itself with its enquiry, like any other enquirer in the world, at any other time. That is why I always say, Gita is a dialogue between an enlightened intelligence and a deluded mind. It is available for all people of all times, simply because it is a dialogue that transpired between a student and his teacher. Both of them were human beings. Arjuna was not satisfied, so he adds something more. What was it? Nahi prabhashyami mamapanudyat yachogam uchoshanam indriyanam avapya bhuma vasapatnamurdham rajyam suranam api chadhivatyam. Krishna, I have to tell you something very significant. What is that? Don't tell me, Arjuna, somehow you fight. If you lose, you get the heroic heaven. If you gain, you can enjoy a prosperous kingdom. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I am not in a position to get up. My grief is scorching the senses of the body. This is my plight. Unless you are able to cool and comfort me, don't open your mouth. Don't tell me big things. I am suffering from grief. It is overpowering my senses, scorching them. Unless you are able to cool and comfort me, how will you comfort me? Not be giving me Coca-Cola or Pepsi. I can maximum hear what you say. Nothing else I can do. I am already sitting, unable to stand. So with your words, you must be able to you must be able to console me and make me understand and make me get up. This is the way the conversation has grown. What do you say? How many people understand it in this manner? Such a beautiful question, such a beautiful insistence, a kind of an analysis of his plight. It's always the mind that causes problems. Every problem is mind-based and the solution is intelligence-based. We are never prepared to use our intelligence, only the mind. You look, I sometimes wonder, an untimely death takes place in a family. Oh, all members of the family start crying, leaving the dead body to itself. Even when the person has died, the dead body requires the right treatment. It has to be taken for cremation. Who will look after the dead body? The related people. What is this? As humans, can we not do better? We will do everything that is necessary to the dead body. A person is dead, therefore he becomes a point of fear. Frightening? How do you explain this? Others will have to come and look after the body. Is it a happy situation, a proper situation? You cry later. At the moment you look after the dead body and do whatever is necessary, but people are not able to do it. Is it human, I ask you? No, our mind is capable of doing it. We can, and we must be able to. So mind causes all the problems. And the solution is from the intelligence. All of you are suffering from problems because you are not prepared to apply your intelligence and think about it. Whenever you have a problem, the problem should be analyzed. That should become the subject of introspection. So Arjuna has completed his statement, his confession. Now it is for Krishna to take up the subject and take the dialogue forward. Now we go to the 11th sloka, the 11th verse of the second chapter, where the actual message, spiritual instruction starts. Ashocyan anvashocastvam prajnavadamscha bhashase gatasoon agatasumscha nanushochandi panditaha. The first verse that Sri Krishna spoke in terms of spiritual wisdom and instruction. Recite it. Ashocyananvashocastvam
Ashocyananvashocastvam
prajnavadamscha bhashase.
Prajnavadamscha bhashase.
Are all of you reciting? Or some are not? Ashocyananvashocastvam
Ashocyananvashocastvam
prajnavadamscha bhashase.
Prajnavadamscha bhashase.
Gatasuna gatasumscha
Gatasuna gatasumscha
nanushochandi panditaha.
Nanushochandi panditaha.
See, Krishna is discussing shocha, grief itself. He made that point as the subject of discussion and evaluation. Any problem you have, I have to console people when they come to the ashram. One important point that I ask, you may laugh over, but there is a lot of point in what I say. So, after talking to them quite a lot and appeasing them and finally say, shall I tell you, given something important? Yes, what is that? Don't you like the person who has died? Yes, I had immense love. If you love somebody, will you not like everything of his? Huh? Suppose he has died, should you not like that also? Answer me. Why death alone becomes unacceptable? By your attitude, will it change? Will the dead man come back? It is already an event. It has to be accepted. I am not asking you to accept what has not come to be. It has already come to be. Then accept. Something has gone, so you leave it. Our mind has got enough capacity. So he says, Ashocyan anvashocha. Whom are you grieving about, Arjuna? You are grieving over Bhishma and Drona. Who are they? You yourself described that they are Mahapurushas. They are great holy people. If they are great holy people, will they ever do a nonsense? Will they do anything in haste and hurry? Is not this Mahabharata war a well thought out proposition? Has it come in a matter of hours? Is it like bombing by the enemies? Krishna went as an ambassador. He spoke very persuasively. He had already mentioned it before starting. And Duryodhana did not accept. He did not heed the advice of Bhishma and the others. He singled himself out and then said, no. If they want the kingdom, let them fight it. I will not give even 5 villages for them. Not a needle point of space shall I part with. This was what Duryodhana said. Then Krishna instantly decided the time of the war, the date for the war, and then return. So it was all an open affair. And Bhishma and Drona, you know very well what is their point of view. They don't side Duryodhana. I think I told you, before commencing the war, Yudhishthira suddenly laid his weapons down and marched. After this Gita Upadesha was over, Arjuna was taken aback. My brother is going. He is going to surrender. He started running behind. Krishna said, pulled him, keep quiet. He will not do any nonsense like you. Keep quiet. So Yudhishthira went there. prostrated before Bhishma and said, "Give me consent. I want to fight." Then he said, "Pridoham putra yudhyasva." I am immensely pleased because you have come and prostrated before me, seeking permission and blessing. If you had not done it, I would have cursed you. Now that you have come, I am pleased. Fight and gain victory, he said. This he would have explained to Arjuna also. So they are great people. Great people cannot do any mischief. So whom are you grieving over? Bhishma and Drona? They are to be adored. Their actions emulated. They have nothing wrong in them. They are an embodiment of purity, propriety, nobility, benevolence. If they have taken sides with Duryodhana, there is ample purpose behind it. Instead of seeking to know what is that, you start grieving over them. Grieving over them. What is this? What is this? Prajnavadamsya bhashase. At the same time, you are speaking like a big scholar. Because he spoke a lot, all of us will have to live in hell, etc. I have no time to explain that portion. A lot of talk he gave to Krishna, explaining his point of view. So you talk like a scholar, a pandita, but you behave like a fool. Why? Gatasun agatasumsya nanushochandi pandita. The wise people never grieve over the dead or over the living. What do you say? This is why Gita is enlightening. It is inspiring. The wise people, everybody will honor the wise people. The wise people never grieve over either the dead or the living. Suppose you grieve over the dead, oh, you have gone. Then what about the living people? They are going. The dead people have become dead. The living people are going to become dead. So if you grieve over the dead, you should start grieving over the living. I mean, you will also die. You will also die. What is the difference between the two? From one set of bodies, the life forces have departed, gatasun, and from the other bodies, they have not departed. It's only a question of time. Let me ask you, Arjuna, all people here are born. Ultimately for what? You have no courage to say. Ultimately to die. Suppose you say this, will you die? Huh? Will you die? Suppose you don't say this, will you remain alive forever? Why don't we understand these matters? What is the problem? We are living, we are observing our birthday. One day we were born. Will that day ever repeat? Huh? Still we observe birthday. Marriage anniversary. I have heard death anniversary for a long number of years, but marriage anniversary I started here. Only a few years back. You know, upon this earth, 10,000 crores of people have died and 700 crores are living now. What are these people going to do? Huh? We are observing the birthday. I always ask, is it birthday or death approaching day? Huh? Why don't you understand and make fun? This is how you have to think. Instead of grieving, you should have gone to Bhishma and Drona. My dear venerable people, Mahapurushas, you seem to be very stable and poised, but I seem to be unnerved. What is that great lofty point of view that you have, as a result of which you have no instability at all in causing this war and participating in it? You could have sought. Instead of seeking this kind of a wisdom, you sternly said, I will not fight. I will retreat from the war. This is not right. What is this? This is a very immature way, unwise way of behaving in situations like this. My dear Arjuna, Krishna says, you must have a deeper personality, a loftier note in your thought. Life and death are not uncommon. They are common. Not only that, they are mutual and complementary. Is there anybody who can deny this? We are born with a body. The whole body was shaped in the mother's womb. The fetal heart started there itself. It is that heart that lives for, in my case it has already lived for 90 years. Tell me, have you done anything for it? You put on your bulk, making it greatly too much for the heart to pump. Suppose you are supposed to be 60 kilograms. If you are 75, then 1/4 the burden is more to the biological heart. So we have no consideration at all. We are foolish to the core. We will not take exercises. We will not walk. We will go on eating, that's all. We only know to eat. A very irresponsible behavior. Life and death are mutual. Every day of our life is a movement to death. It is not a movement to life. Why don't you analyze, understand? Our intelligence is enormous resources. The mind has to be animated, enriched by the wisdom the intelligence generates and instills. That is the only way the mind can be enriched. There is no agency anywhere in the world, no other agency which will be able to exercise any influence on the mind. It's only the intelligence. So far as Kshatriyas and fighters are concerned, what do? They should lie on their cot and die, or they should come to the battlefield, fight and die. What are they supposed to do? We are not supposed to be idle at all. What is it that you are saying? So you must evaluate matters very well and try to understand the proposition with clarity and with sufficient vision. Now you tell me, what is Bhagavad Gita? Is it a war gospel? Is it a religious gospel? It is a life gospel. It is an administrative treasure trove. It is a science and art of interactional life. How to live in this world. How to pursue our interactions with sufficient stability, poise, with sufficient confidence, clarity, unshakability, unassailability. This is what we want. So Arjuna was wondering, whatever he thought about death and life, absolutely wrong. Wisdom demands that people look at living and death in the same manner. One is a complement to the other. One is mutual to the other. Our heart continues to live. It continues to beat, not because of our help and guidance. Can you imagine how many decades it beats? Ceaselessly. It is made and it lives. I always tell people, you light a lamp. Your heart beats because you have lit a lamp, or you are able to light a lamp because the heart beats. Where lies the first emphasis? So he was wondering, what is this? Wise people look at life and death alike. So what is that point of view by virtue of which life and death become the same for them? So there is a higher point of view. What is that point of view? So Krishna began to speak. This is the second verse of instruction. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipaha najaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. The most important verse in Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, you think that I was born of Devaki. But I tell you, my body was delivered by her. I was not born of her. Why? Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadhipaha najaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. The wise people do not distinguish between the dead and the living. They have a vision, greater vision, by virtue of which they look at both alike, I said. What is that vision? It is that vision of immortality, the vision of imperishability, the vision about the unbornness and the undyingness of the I, the soul. And he presents it. Recite it. Natvevaham jatunasam
Natvevaham jatunasam
natvam neme janadhipaha
natvam neme janadhipaha
najaiva na bhavishyamaha
nachaiva na bhavishyamaha
sarve vayamatah param.
sarve vayamatah param.
He says, are you getting? Do you find it interesting? There was no time when I was not. You cannot say Krishna was born. No. If Krishna was born, what does it mean? He was not present before birth. That will be a total wrong. It will be a total wrong. There was no time when I was not. Equally so you were not. Equally so Bhishma, Drona and the others were not. We were present. Can something absent become present? Sunte hai kya? See, if you are present now, were you not present earlier? If you are not present, could you be present now? If you were present and you are present, will you become absent later? Ho gaya. There will not be a time when we shall cease to be. Never say a person has died. There is no extinction at all. Presence is presence. Existence continues to exist. It never becomes non-existent at all. So there was no time when I was not, you were not, and the others were not. Nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. There will not be a time when we shall not ever be. This is the point of view of the enlightened people. I sometimes light-heartedly tell people, you are performing the Shraddha for the departed soul. Shraddha means what? They have died. So you are killing them and then offering Pinda and Udaga. Too much, is it not? There is an Upanishad called Kathopanishad. It is supposed to be read on the Shraddha day. Kathopanishad tells through Yamadharma Raja to small young Nachiketas, saying that there is no death. So we have to understand what is the Shraddha. What is the relevance? What are we to do in memory of the departed? I always write a letter. Whatever values, principles, and other disciplines the departed soul had embodied, try to incorporate them in your life and pursue them with vigor and fondness, remembering the departed. This is the best Shraddha for him. Natvevaham jadunasam, natvam neme janadhipaha, najaivana bhavishyamaha, sarve vayamatah param. So Arjuna, never think of a birth. No, not at all. To accept that I was born is to accept before birth I was not. If you are not before birth, can you be after birth? Huh? Something that is present will continue to be present. If something is absent, how can it become present later? So, eternal is the nature of the I. Eternal is the nature of life. Eternal is the nature of the inmost presence. Understand this. Then what about death? Death is only a transition. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhirastatra na muhyadi. Birth itself is a transformation. The child from the mother's womb is delivered off into the wide open. That is a transition from inside to outside. And the born child, if it does not transform at all, will you be happy? Every moment it should grow. That means from the childhood, babyhood, it should become a child. From the childhood, it should grow into a boy or a girl, then adolescence, then youth, like that. So how long will it grow? If you continue to grow, every year or every 5 years you will have to replace your dose. So the growth stops at the age of 21. Then it declines. And the decline, where will it end ultimately? I always say people who have become 80, they should die. Any further life becomes difficult. It is applicable to me also. But somehow I don't feel my age, I am able to move about. So in the same body, just like you have transformations like boyhood, adolescence, etc., tatha dehantara praptihi. The soul leaves the body only to have another body. The presence of the soul is not visible because the body through which it is revealed, that body becomes damaged. It is just like the fusing of a bulb. Nothing happens to the electricity in circulation. Nothing happens. So never think of extinction about death. It is only a transition, he says. Okay, all my problems about death, I will not raise it anymore. But what about life? Life is always a confrontation as I am confronted now. What do you have to say about it, Krishna? Arjuna was asking. Then he gives beautifully. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agamapayino anityaha tanti dikshasva bharata. According to me, this is the supermost shloka in Bhagavad Gita. It gives you a definition of human life. Our life can be defined from various angles. You can have an anthropological definition, a medical definition, a physical definition. Many types of description can be given. But here he brings a beautiful description in 4 letters. He says, Matra sparshaha. Say that. There are 2 words here. Matra and sparsha. Matra means by which you measure. So we are recognizing and measuring the world through our senses. The eyes determine colors and shapes. The ears decipher sounds. The tongue is able to distinguish taste, the nose the smell, and the skin the touch. So the world may be infinitely various, but so far as you are concerned, they are only 5. Can you imagine? Our 5 senses telescope the entire world to be Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Gandha. There is no 6th factor at all. So our life is Matra Sparshaha. It is a contact between the senses and the objects. All are in the nature of contacts. The light rays reflected from an object travel through the sky and touch the cornea. When they touch the cornea, electrical pulses are sent to the brain centers where experience and knowledge transpire. But mind you, the senses and the body are inert. They cannot cause experiences. Experience is had only because of the mind. The mind is inside the body. So the inner mind employs these senses and the mind takes imprints of the object. You only see the mental imprints, never the outside object, even of your own body and your child's body. Never, never, never. Never, never, never. Never, never, never. Can you understand this and be guided by this? I have doubts. Very disobedient listeners I have. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukhadukhadaha. Whenever there is a contact between the senses and the objects, invariably, irrefutably, unavoidably, they generate 2 sensations. Shitoshna sukhadukhadaha, like cold and heat. Cold and heat are physical. Sukha and dukha are mental. So the varietal world is reduced into 5 by the senses, and when they trickle down to the mind level, they become pleasant and unpleasant. So you tell me, the whole world generates for you only 2 experiences or responses called pleasant and unpleasant. So tell me what is there in the world then. And these are generated by the world or by your senses and mind. So tell me whether the world causes any experience. This is how the intelligence works. Listen to your intelligence, use it properly. Our senses are perceiving the objects. They are employed by the mind. The objects do not perceive us. We perceive the world. The world doesn't perceive us. So world is our experience. And our experience, 5 in the sensory level, are reduced to 2 in the mind level, and in sleep they are reduced to 0. So what is this world in your sleep state? Tell me. This is India. This is our ancient wisdom. Like cold and heat, pleasantness and unpleasantness, happiness and misery, both are alternately formed. They are mutual, complementary. Therefore, what you should do? Understand that they come and go. They don't come and stay. They come only to go. They go only to come. Allow them to come and go. You be where you are. Remain the I. My sukha, I have generated. My dukkha, I was unhappy. Now I have transcended unhappiness. I am happy. So I am such that I can glide through happiness and unhappiness. Both of them do not stick to you at all. They come and go. They come and go. Because they come and go, they are transitory. And the I in you is eternal. And the eternal I is frightened by them. क्या नहीं समझते? Huh? Why don't you think, my dear souls, the sukha and dukha will simply thin down. They will have no heaviness, no intensity. They will simply, like letters written on water, they will simply be nothing. Let the intelligence be awakened. Let the intelligence be aroused. Let it be operational. Do not be emotional. Agamapayino anityaha tan tidikshasva bharata. Forbear them. Forbear them. This forbearance comes from an intelligent assessment of matters by developing discretion and discrimination about life experiences, the role of the senses, the role of the mind, and the role of the intelligence. You know, Prahlada, the little boy, 7 years old, he calls the classmates, saying that the teachers are not giving the right instruction. They are missing the important. Come, I shall tell you. All of them responded with sharp ears. And he talks. I will say this and stop. Sukham aindriyakam daitya dehayogena dehinam sarvatra lebhyade devad yatha dukkham ayatnataha. I find so much of wisdom in this statement, but I doubt whether you will also feel. He says, the sensory sukhadukhas are there everywhere. In the earth, in the heaven, in the hell, everywhere they are there. Sarvatra lebhyade deivad yatha dukkham ayatnataha. Does anyone ever try to have dukkha? Huh? Your effort, if at all, is to avoid dukkha. Still you get dukkha. If with specific effort to avoid dukkha, you still have irresistibly dukkha, then will you not also have sukha? What is sukha? Sukha is that condition when the preceding dukkha disappears and the opposite comes. So every time you experience sukha, you experience it between two dukkhas, the preceding and the succeeding. Unless you have the predecessor dukkha, you cannot have the successor sukha. And the successor sukha also drives you to dukkha. So the sukha which is in between two dukkhas, is it worth having? Why are you keeping quiet? Huh? And should you try for it? Because you have been deadly trying and still you have dukkha. And this dukkha has come after sukha. You cannot have dukkha without first having had sukha. So, do you have to make any effort for them? Simply live in this world. Simply live in this world with ease, poise, harmony, lightness and freedom. This freedom comes from knowledge, by the application of intelligence. Yatha dukkham ayatnataha. Just like dukkha is had without any effort, sukha also will be had. Either you have both or you have neither. So from today onwards, will you be enlightened and be guided by this exposure of Krishna? Huh? Never complain about dukkha and never have a preference for sukha. Drop the preference or prejudice, either prejudice towards dukkha or preference towards sukha. When the mind becomes harmonious, you will find you can live beautifully, well, easily and comfortably. You know, this reflection, this subjective intellectual reflection, if it goes on, you will find this dukkha becomes thinner and thinner, feebler and feebler, lighter and lighter. In our own heart and mind, everybody, every day, both disappear when you sleep. 16 to 17 hours you are wakeful. At the end of the wakefulness, mind completely obliterates all the effects of interactions. All the effects of interactions. And you are put to sleep. Then again you are awakened. So what is the power of the mind, you tell me? All the interactional impacts completely wiped off by the mind within the body. Completely wiped off. And every day. And you remain for half the wakeful duration. Half the wakeful duration you remain. We are awake in this world only for 2/3 of our life. 1/3 we are not. And the sleep has no lesson for you. Sleep has a meaning only for medical doctors. It has a philosophical and spiritual meaning and purpose. Sleep is the mystery of the whole creation. When we wake up, world dawns as a result of our wakefulness. Our wakefulness creates the world. Our wakefulness creates the world. Our sleep wipes off the world. So the emergence as well as subsidence of the world takes place where? Why are you keeping quiet? The world emerges and subsides where? In your own within. And every day. And you call the world superior? And you inferior? Has the world wiped off anybody in this world? Body has got into accident. See what is presented here. So the discussion, initially it was about war and fighting, but suddenly it has assumed an altogether different proportion. The entire life becomes the focus here. The entire world becomes the focus here. And the entire interactions become the focus here. Okay, I shall stop. See, when your intelligence, I always say we don't have any value for intelligence. In our life also, you will find we are giving education to the students. What for? Is it to improve their body? It's only to enrich and empower the mind and the intelligence. When the intelligence becomes awake and it starts functioning well, you will find all the undesirable effects the mind produces, they will simply vaporize. But you should spend time and introspect. Who can deny the fact that every sukha is in between two dukkhas? And still we are running after it. So you remain freely. Even then your quota and sukha and dukkha will not be reduced. Never try. Simply live. Your senses and mind will produce it. And the entire world can give you only these two experiences, responses. It doesn't have anything further to give. And these sukha dukkhas are produced in our mind, not in the world outside. So can we not moderate them? Can we not handle them? Huh? Once you decide, I always say, Krishna provides such a beautiful key whereby you become the master of the world, not a slave. You look at the world and say, my dear world, what can you do for me? You cannot give anything at all. Nothing can be added to me. Nothing can be taken away from me. Such a wonderful. See that little boy saying, 7-year-old child, and all the others are listening with rapt attention. In spite of best efforts to avoid dukkha, we are having dukkha. And this dukkha will be there only after having had sukha. Again, we will have sukha. So why should you worry about it? So waving your hands, live comfortably, and you will always have what you want. Samvedyavarjitamanuttamamegamadyam samvidpadam vigalanam kalayan mahatman hridyevadishtha kalanarahita kriyam tu kurvan agartrapadamethya samodidashri kurvan agartrapadamethya samodidashri. I recite this sloka, but nobody asked me, Swamiji, please explain the meaning of this verse. But very recently somebody who came to the ashram said, please explain. So I was very happy in explaining. See, our students, I talk so much and so many listeners are there. None of them is interested. What wonderful listening. Such a beautiful sloka. Vasishtha tells Sri Rama. And for intelligent people, it has got profound message. Hridyevadishtha kalanarahita kriyam tu kurvan agartrapadamethya samodidashri. Hari, Hari, Hari. We shall have the concluding Onkara. Be ready for it. Hari Om Tas. Do you really feel that we can live freely? Yes. Huh? By understanding.